Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's episode number 247 of the Audible Farm Podcast, and this episode is brought to you by the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. Go to www.fdfineartsassociation.com to find out more. Check out their community calendar, and also check out their podcast, FDT. That is FDTEA, Fort Dodge Thoughtful Exchange about the arts. And they sit down and talk with a lot of people in the arts, music, anything that has to do with, members and people they support. And it's a lot of stuff that you might not see on this podcast. You'll see it over there for sure. I get to co-host it with Shelly Bodorf of the Fine Arts Association. It's really fun. Be sure to check that out. Check out that community calendar on their website, though, too. It's pretty awesome. This episode, I'm sitting down with Sidney McField. Sidney, we know each other. We've talked to each other, but we've never sat down and had an extended conversation with each other, which is going to make this one great because I don't know if I've known anybody more interesting than Sidney. And the only thing I'd ever really heard about Sidney was stories, and they weren't from Sidney. It's like, I heard Sidney this, and did you know Sidney did that? And it's just like, all right, I got to ask him. So I sat down and made sure to remember a couple of those, asked a couple people some questions, and I fielded a great list of stuff to ask Sidney. I feel like we only scratched the surface. I feel like there's more to it. We glossed over some really fun things in this episode, and I had a blast sitting down talking with Sidney. I think we get right into it at the beginning of this episode. He brought me a coffee, so won my heart over instantly. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. It's going to be really, really fun. It's episode number 247 with Sidney McField.
It's the Audible Farm Podcast with your host, Peter Stockdale.
Sitting down today with Sidney McField. Sidney, you and I have interacted some, but we don't really actually know each other too well. So
True.
This is going to be fun. I'm going to get to know you, and you're going to get to know me, and everyone's going to get to know you because I think you've got an interesting story. This is one of those things where I actually I know people that know you pretty well, like Owen or Jefferson Fossbender, where it's they've interacted with you more than I have. And it's like, what should I ask about Sidney that people might not know? Because I'm always worried, I'm not going to pull all the information out. That's going to be fun. But they gave me some good ideas. So let's just kind of start it out. Where are you from originally?
I am from Nicaragua in Central America.
Okay.
Yep. So my first language is Spanish, and I come from a culture where rum, tobacco, and coffee are extremely important.
Yeah. For those not watching on YouTube, he brought me some coffee. How freaking
some
cool
Nicaraguan coffee.
Even better. Yes. Homegrown. Somebody down there did you know the person that do you know somebody down there that has a coffee?
I do know, however, that's not how I obtained that one.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool.
There's a church in Fort Dodge that has some sort of ministry. I think it's a Presbyterian church that has a ministry where they bring coffee and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh,
so
cool.
From Nicaragua.
Oh,
some kind of
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So let's I kind of want to get to how you ended up in America, but at the same time, somebody told me that when you were down in Nicaragua, you kind of started learning how to play guitar on a guitar with no strings. Does that sound right?
That is correct.
All right. So let's kind of talk, what got you into music first and foremost?
Well, first of all, I think it's in my blood. My dad's a poet and a musician.
Oh,
He's
cool.
a songwriter. And during the time of the revolution back in my country, he wrote a lot of popular songs. We never sat down to be like, hey, this is how you... No,
okay.
that never happened. And what started everything was an old guitar that used to hang in my house for the longest time. And then one day when I was probably 8, I picked it up the first time, and then my father taught me the A position.
Okay.
So then I did that. Then it hurt my fingers a little too much. Then I strummed it, and then it hurt my right hand because in Nicaragua we don't play with picks.
Okay.
And everybody who owns a guitar uses what you call here a classical nylon string guitar.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So then I picked it up again when I was 16.
Okay.
And some of those strings were still there. and I thought it was going to be easier to just remove them. And then I just started fiddle around with it. Then I probably by the 17, a neighbor was taking lessons, one of my friends, and I heard once, and I would go every night just to take a peek at how they would do it. And that's how I picked up some shapes. Then I would go to my house and I would just replicate the same thing with no strings. So
That's wild.
technique was perfect, right? And everything sounded right in my head.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually really fun. I think about that when like I first started playing like in a church, and a lot of what I learned was like by sight. You'd be like all the way across the stage, kind of looking like, oh, they're playing this chord now. They're playing this chord now, or whatever, because for whatever reason. So I kind of get where you could like learn from sight, but to like watch it and then go back to your house and 5 minutes later pick up a guitar with no strings and be like, it was this, is mind blowing, honestly.
I was sharing, that's funny that you said that, a little bit of that story this week. There was a good part of my life as I was growing up that in my house there was no electricity, right?
Okay.
So at night it was rather candlelight or sometimes nothing. And then when I finally was able to borrow my friend's guitar, I would practice in the dark at the house, which helped quite a bit, because then you start memorizing where everything goes and whatever. So that was pretty interesting. And the tuning part came from there were just little plastic devices that they would sell. You just blow and then try to train your ear to tune it right
to match it to it. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then if you would drop that thing, it would mess up the
yeah, and then you'd be tuning it to it, but it wouldn't be right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's
that's wild. That's, I don't know, I defy anybody. Like, do you have a story of learning the guitar that's wilder than that? I'm not sure. Like, that's pretty crazy.
Watch, learn, practice in the dark. You'll be all right. You'll figure it out.
Honestly, like, a lot of that probably came out to your benefit. You're learning by ear. You're learning in the dark, so you're not actually just visually, like, always being like, my fingers. You're, like, watching. You don't have to watch them. You know where they're going to go.
No tabs.
Yeah.
I'll let you do the interview. I don't want to spill the beans a little bit more than what I need to.
No, keep spilling, man. I mean, that's what this is for. Yeah, spill away. You got stories, tell them.
There were lots of cassettes where I would, that's how you would play the music in a cassette, little tape recorder with batteries. And then what sounded familiar was great. I was able to pick it up and train my ear to it. But then what didn't sound familiar would take days to figure out. Like, for example, I remember the first time I bumped into a diminished chord. Yeah. I was like, what? That's not what my neighbor is learning.
Yeah.
And it sounded like something, but it was not exactly that. But then with time, you learn some of that weird stuff.
Well, I always think that's like, your majors, your minors. The first time you see a seventh chord, you're like, why would I ever need this? And then all of a sudden you find out where it sounds good. And then
you're like, oh.
Yeah. Then it's like, oh, somebody's playing a 9 chord. Like, why would I ever want to play a 9? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait, it sounds good here. And then you just keep going to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I wouldn't have not thought like an augmented or even a diminished chord. Like, those are the first two. I was like, there's no way this would ever sound good, but it sounds good next to other things.
Yeah, in the context, right?
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't until I started teaching jazz guitar to a kid. I was basically just like, okay, here's the chords and here's the easiest way through them all. But when you play them one by one, you're like, this doesn't sound good, But when you play it one, first chord, second chord, third chord, and you're leading between them, you're like, this sounds amazing. There's no way you're like, it's crazy though, because you're like, well, if you got like a flat fifth, sharp 9 or something, like something was super weird, you're like, this is never going to sound normal anywhere.
Yeah, in Latin America, we're quite exposed to the bossa nova music.
Oh, yeah.
And then when you hear that weird stuff, you go like, oh, okay, I don't know how to play the guitar. And then you learn that it's a different collection of chords, very popular for, further down south in the American continent.
That's awesome. I mean, you think that's also beneficial to like you learning guitar in a different way than like maybe most of us? I would say us up here, because it's like, it's just 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, everything's major, just next.
I still don't know what that stuff is. Like I kind of have an idea what is from the first to the third to the fifth. Mm-hmm. Like I hear people talking about that stuff, and I go like, yeah, if I hear it, I'll jump.
Yeah, that's so great.
Not like it has a name, that particular system, right?
It's just music theory in general,
Okay.
I guess. But it's like the whole gist is like if you were to play a scale, it's either the first note, the third note, or the fifth note, or the fourth note, or one of those. But then you just make a chord out of that quote unquote note. So that's kind of the gist of it. But it's also crazy that it's like you said, if you hear it, you'll jump to it.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But it's like. To write it down on a piece of paper, you don't necessarily know it. You know, like that's awesome. Yeah. And I think that's the funnest thing about it, because like, as I'm not trying to be like mean or weird about this, but like if somebody could speak a language but not write it, we'd call them illiterate,
right?
But you can speak music just fine. You just can't. You don't know the writing it down part
True.
as well. But you could speak more fluently than most other people.
I could.
You know, it's crazy how that works out. You know.
Well, it's the difference, right? When you have. When you learn through music school and when you learn by ear or by circumstance or whatever, you know, a lot of our rural area musicians in Nicaragua, you know, you hand them a right-handed guitar, and if the person is left-handed and one day saw someone playing left-handedly, they just flip it over and play without rearranging strings or anything. Like they just go.
Yeah, that's wild.
You know, and they have their own G position, C position.
Yeah.
Hey, it sounded like that thing I heard at one time, so you know it'll stay like that. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah. That's super cool. So you're actually like, without having all of this like exposure to like, let's say like a YouTube or things like that, like you'd think like it would be limitless, but I feel like people get like harnessed into certain things. You know, for example, like I read like one music theory book. I went to took one music theory class. That's like basically all it is. That's where all my knowledge comes from. And I've never really delved too much deeper into that. So like, it's weird for me to like try and learn new concepts where someone's like, actually you could play all these accidentals and it sounds good. And it's like, I want to know why more so than anything. I guess maybe that's just a different mindset looking at music.
I remember bumping once in a library into a book that would teach you how to build the chords, and it was okay, but then it was not. And again, right? I was reading on my own. It was not necessarily like super practical, because you would see the shapes and you would go like, okay, so then I place it like this. And then it sounds, and then it's like, okay, but in what song could I be able to use that? Yeah,
exactly. Oh my God. So I feel like the cultural difference actually like could be like a benefit in certain ways. You know, it's not like, again, like you're also probably about my age. Like I'm in mid to late 30s. I'm assuming you're about my age. So like you grew up before YouTube even, you know, like playing, you didn't have YouTube to lean on. So there's a lot of things that, you know, we didn't have that other people have.
And then you have to think, right, who has access to internet in a third world country? It's not like, oh yeah, just check it on your phone. Like, that
I guess I never
that doesn't fly like that.
I guess I never really thought about that, you know. I guess I didn't really even look it up to see how accessible internet would have even been back then, you know, like.
Yeah. Some people had the dial-up connection, but that was until the late 90s.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, different.
But you have
background.
Yeah, but you have radio though. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like radio still works. So this makes me think about something. I heard this. I've heard it happen. There was one other person I interviewed on the podcast that had a similar story, but like somebody told me you learned how to speak English from listening to American songs.
Yes.
Or like in some contexts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like somebody actually said it was Michael Jackson.
Yep.
Okay. So like, let's kind of go through that. Like, how did you figure out you were learning English, or like, how prevalent is English in somewhere other than America? Like,
well, in Nicaragua, in the Atlantic coast, more properly called the Caribbean coast, colloquially saying where black people come from, like myself or darker, the first language is English.
Okay.
Right? And it's a little bit of a Creole English.
Oh, cool.
So if my name is not a typical Latin American name, right?
Yeah.
My name could be Juan Perez, right?
Okay.
For example. which it nothing wrong against that name. It's all good. But I grew up with a little bit of a kind of like an expectation that, given the fact that my father was a black poet from the Atlantic coast of my country and would speak English, I should know English by now.
Oh, wow.
And I kind of like self-imposed that for me to, just pick it up, run and learn it. And when I was growing up, I was in a dance group, in a dance team.
Cool.
And it was the first way that I got exposed to art, and it was through dancing. And I danced pretty much everything, merengue, salsa, all that stuff.
Whoa.
But also jazz and more of interpretation stuff, like, just free form of dancing, but just everything. And then one day I remember seeing a video of Michael Jackson, and I was just super curious about what the words were saying, because that is one of the fascinating things about the English language. It's so full of sounds.
Okay.
New sounds that, when you hear your day by day Spanish, you go like, oh, that sounds interesting. And then it just awakens your curiosity. And some of us, we just gravitate towards that, and we want more. And
I guess I never thought about that, because I've taken a few years of Spanish, so I know like basic Spanish and the basic rules of it and stuff, and like a lot of the conjugation of verbs and everything. Everything kind of sounds not the same, but you can see where the pattern is, and it's just like you're now exposed to a different pattern.
Yeah,
yeah. So
that's exactly right. Yeah.
English being the different pattern.
Yeah, and it was easy to figure out sentence construction in English, and then I believe that it was more of a gift in a lot of circumstances that allowed me to understand it better. Years later, I became an English as a second language teacher down my path.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's awesome. So you taught English as a second language in Nicaragua?
I did. That's how I used to pay my bills in Nicaragua.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So my lessons, my classes were full of music.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine.
So it never felt like a job.
Yeah, but then again, music's a good way to learn stuff. Yeah. How many times, like, I'm trying to think of like stuff up here, like Reading Rainbow or like, Sesame Street, they'd sing you a song, and it's like, well, I know how to, now I know exactly what this is because the song sang it to me, and you can re-sing the song.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what about like other things with music? So somebody said you were a radio DJ in Nicaragua. Okay, so did your love of music kind of lead you that direction, or were you a radio DJ before or after you did teaching for English as a second language?
It kind of happened at the same time. When I became a Christian, I arrived to a church that had a radio program.
Cool.
And then in this radio program, just like classic churches, the leadership takes care of these things, but sometimes they take a little bit of time transitioning into passing the torch and having somebody to, learn the ropes and carry on with that. So this particular show, the one where I started, was called Day by Day with Jesus.
Okay.
And it was like a 15-minute show right at noon, and it had a song, a Bible verse, a little bit of interpretation, and a prayer. That was it.
Cool, though. Like.
So I would open the show. Hey, we're gonna listen to this. Then I would read something. Then we would interpret a little bit, and then it's 15 minutes. So
I know that's like a mini church service. Like as compact as you could make it. That is perfect, though. Like
a daily dose, right?
Yeah, I mean that's great. I mean, for the people that don't want to go for a whole hour or an hour and a half, like that's the perfect amount right there. You're on your lunch break. You take a little bit in while you're eating your sandwich, and that's awesome.
So that one started. Then there was an opening to do one that was 1 hour on Sundays.
Oh, cool.
And I'm like, what, 19, 20? And I go like, okay, I'm going to need a lot of songs for this. And then they said, nope, just one song. Okay, and the rest of it is reading and talking? Yep. So I learned the ropes that way. And my pastor and mentor used to do that one with me. And it was kind of like this. It was a conversation. It would take 1 hour, and it was in the AM. So instead of FM or the super nice and crisp sound, it was AM. And it was, the target market was rural areas where we had mission, and where the only thing that you would have access to is radio, not television, not electricity.
Yep. No internet. So no internet.
No, absolutely not.
No phones.
No.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Wow.
No, absolutely not.
Oh man, I'm like having like a mini meltdown right now thinking about like
how good I got it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what would you do? I mean, I lived in the time without phones, but it's like, what would you do without a cell phone? How would you know what anybody's doing?
You live,
Yeah,
you survive,
you
you
do.
grow, and you do life. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yep.
So did you said you only played one song on each show. So this wasn't like you're a radio DJ being like music DJ then. No. Okay. Did you ever have a job like that doing radio stuff?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I had a brother I have a brother who is a journalist and did this for decades in the city in Managua, the capital city of Nicaragua. And I would see him doing this, like I would go with him to his 7 to 9 p.m. show, and I would see him doing all the stuff. And then he started to float around different radios, and I would just see what he was doing, picking up the calls, putting up the songs, switching it all, following the programming, because there are rules about, hey, if you played, this particular song in the past 2 hours, you can now play it again. So you gotta find a different hit, because now all the DJs are playing the same thing over and over.
Oh, cool.
So
I mean,
and this is way before iHeartRadio or streaming or oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, that makes me think about like nowadays, if you just have like a radio on in your office, you hear the same song at least every hour, and how repetitive that gets. And,
yeah. Or you create your playlist, right? These are the 1,000 songs that I'm gonna hear this week, and nothing is gonna interrupt it.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like that model you had there was almost like trying to keep a monopoly from music, keeping that out of there. So you're not just like, well, now we have a Katy Perry and we've got a, like a whoever, you pick your artists that are like the pop artists. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool. So did you ever make it on the radio to be like the talking DJ guy, or were you mostly behind the scenes at the music stuff?
For the classical job of a DJ, not necessarily. I had those particular radio shows for probably around 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And then when I moved here, I started to do it via podcast for like probably about 3-4 years. And then I would send a link, like a cloud link, to the radio in Nicaragua, and then they would play it, and it was,
Oh, cool. So you were doing it all like remotely then.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Dude, it's like we're just at the like basic part of like you grew up in Nicaragua. You learned music on a guitar without any strings. You learned English from listening to Michael Jackson and or other American songs. You made it on the radio to be a DJ. Were you like a pastor then at your church then? Or like something similar?
Without a title, yes.
Okay.
Sure. And my work was always with the youth and with different things like that. But no, not a youth pastor. Just a leader doing things that where there was a need. I would just, step in and do what was needed to do. And
So what's happened between, like, how did you get to America then? Are we up to the point where you're about ready to come to America? Because we did talk about how you have like you have a radio show down there, and then you came up to America, and we're doing it up here for a while too. But like, what brought you up to America? Was it
my first wife?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my first wife. That was back in 2012.
Okay.
That was it, and then we had a separation, and you gotta start over again. By the time I left Nicaragua, everything was well established. The radio show, the teaching, which is how I met her.
Cool.
just everything, just absolutely everything. And towards the end, I had already started a language institute that I was leading. And then it was like, all right, we're selling everything, getting married, and getting out of here. And we did, things you do with when you're in love.
Oh,
So
yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. It's always either a girl, or if you're a girl, it's always a boy. It's always one or the other.
Yep, absolutely. In my case, was a girl.
Or I guess nowadays you can do whatever you want. So, sorry everybody, but like, yes, not trying to be inclusive or exclusive about this. I apologize. But yeah, I mean, I totally get that. Where like, you would kind of just drop everything and come up here. Do you still have a lot of really strong ties down in Nicaragua? Like if you were to like, and I'm just throwing it out there, like call up somebody from the radio station, do you know people down there still that are on the radio?
A few, not enough. The political situation in Nicaragua makes it a little bit difficult in getting in touch with these connections that I have from the past might be bad for them.
Okay.
But that's a whole different show.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I guess that's a different story. I mean, I remember like when I was in high school or just out of high school, like I had a couple friends that went down and did some mission trips in Nicaragua, and they were like, there's some places where certain times a day it's kind of interesting to be there. You kind of want to have a guide with you or something like that, But they said it really wasn't like if you could just go around and do stuff. It's not like, a complete crazy place. But it's like, they were like, yeah, at nighttime, you might not want to go to this part of town and go to the bar. It's like, okay. I mean, that's no different than pretty much anywhere, but it's kind of interesting. So you made it out. What made you decide to stay here and not go back?
Well, it was pretty clear to me that God had brought me here.
Okay.
And I
like, did you get involved in churches up here too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And then I was not gonna quit and be all mopey and sad and be like, well, I'm just gonna go back now. And no. One of the things that you learn coming from very little is that everything, you have to decide if it's going to be an obstacle, if it's going to be an opportunity. And when your mind is clear about that particular opportunity, you know what to do. You choose the opportunity, and you trust that God will get you through it. If He brought you all the way here, He's going to get you through it, and He's going to make it right. He's going to make it better. But we're not going to get preachy right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that we're kind of to like basically how I met you, because I started playing guitar with like Owen. Owen would come to jam nights. We're talking Owen O'Brien. He was on a handful of episodes back, so you can go check that one out if you want. But I'd like play at jam nights with Owen. He's like, I'm going to bring a guy over. He's coming to jam night tonight. And then you came over and you were like, honestly, like it was like one of the nicest things ever. Like, can I sing a song in Spanish to everybody? And everyone's just like, yeah. And you're like, okay, I just want to make sure. Like, it's like, I don't know why anyone would care. But then again, I guess like rural America, sometimes somebody might get a little weird about it. But it was the greatest thing ever.
In Iowa, I have to say, nobody has.
Oh, cool.
Like all the stereotypes and weird things that I hear.
Isn't that weird how that works?
Those what do you call them? Those urban legends of how immigrants get poorly treated. That's BS. That's not my story at all.
And that's what I always think about hearing international news. Like if I like went on an American place and looked up news from Nicaragua, I'd be like, it might be better to get it from the Nicaraguans instead of just, third hand or whatever. So like, I guess I could totally understand that. But I do recall you coming and singing, and it was just one of those things where everyone just kind of like, they're all drinking beer and having a good time. Then everybody kind of just starts to getting quieter and quieter and turning and watching. And they're like, wow, this is great. This guy's killing it up here. So Owen said he played with you in a church band. That's kind of how he met you, I think. And so that's kind of how I met you. That's what I knew you as, was like a church singer. So like, how long were you involved in a church band and stuff?
Well, I still am. Back in the day was the Point Church, where the legendary Tracy Ernst was the worship leader.
Cool.
Whom I had met through work and invited me to come check out his church right around my time when I was getting separated from my first wife.
That's weird how that works. It's like perfectly when you needed it.
Right. Not that I didn't have a church prior to that, but you met Tracy, I'm sure.
I met him a few times, yeah.
And I mean, he has an he had an irresistible personality, and I went just to humor him and entertain him. And little did I know that I was going to end up years later becoming his successor. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And then Stephanie, who was the drummer of that worship team, maybe 2.5 years later, I was going to end up marrying her.
Oh, cool.
So,
That's
yeah.
cool. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So you were you the person that was playing and choosing all the music and playing guitar and singing?
At some point,
and
yes.
And leading
At
it all?
some point, yes. When I arrived, no, that was Tracy's job.
Okay. All
and
right.
then I took over.
Yeah. So how, this is always fun to me because church bands can be, 20 piece with a huge chorus of singers behind them, or you can be like a 4 or 5 piece. And it really doesn't matter because from my experience being in church bands and stuff, if you're in the right place, singing the right songs, people are just feeling it. It doesn't really matter how many people are up there. So like how many people were in the band?
Drum, bass, lead guitar, and 2 other guitars. And that 2 other guitars, I was probably the extra, just out of Tracy's kindness. And then a couple backup singers. Cool. Then when he stepped down, then it was same thing, minus 1 guitarist, because I took his place. Yeah.
Man, I wish there was more bands with backup singers, like just like a whole team of backup singers back there. You got like, you go see like Bob Seger, there'd be 3 women sitting back there singing the backgrounds and stuff. Like that always is like super fun to me.
It is. Yep.
So let's kind of go to like, how do you know you can sing? Did you sing down in Nicaragua? Was there something down there? Because I mean, people who sing, there's got to be somewhere where you figured out you can do it. Because everyone, there was a point in time where I figured out I wasn't the best at it. So you have to figure it out somewhere. Singing in the car, singing in the shower. What are we talking?
So that's a beautiful question. You're making me think of things. And back in Nicaragua, I was part of the largest choir in the country. This choir belongs to a church. So back then it was around 70 people in the choir.
Holy cow.
And this choir would perform Sunday after Sunday at church. And during my, youth group years, somebody invited me to audition and sing. And I said, okay, cool. I know I can dance. I don't know if I can sing.
I'm still blown away that you can dance.
And then, so I auditioned, and my choir director, who was an American missionary in Nicaragua,
cool.
She decided that I was going to be in the bass section, and if I could push, I could be a baritone. And then I learned how to read the music score and to follow the stuff and make sense out of it. Obviously, reading music for the purpose of singing what it's there is different to, read to play. Or so
100%.
I would have an SATB sheet and I would, follow. And then obviously being assisted by
whoever's next to you,
other men that had been doing it for the longest time. It was just
so you're still doing a little bit of ear stuff in there.
Yeah,
like, well, they're doing this, and we're kind of
absolutely,
like,
because our ear hears the melody, right?
And you can look at the sheet music and be like, well, this note's higher than that, so we're going up somewhere, and then you start to figure, well, you never go up too far. You always go up a little bit, or
that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. So wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
I guess I never thought about that too, because you're right. Like, I remember playing an instrument, and it's just like, well, you push these down, and then the note comes out. That's the note. But when you're singing, it's just like, just sing the note. And it's like, I don't know where the note's at. There's no like, I push this button on my face.
Yeah, the note is it's a universe, and that note could be anywhere, right? Yeah.
And with a trumpet, it's like you only have certain notes, but with your voice, you can go in between them any pitch you want, and then. That singing has always blown me away with that aspect, because I still remember the first time somebody showed me sheet music and singing. I'm like, people do this? Like, how do you do this? Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you sang in a church choir, like one of the biggest church choirs down in Nicaragua.
Definitely the biggest.
Definitely the biggest. That's
definitely the biggest for sure. Yeah.
So this is something else that would cross my mind. If I went out and sang somewhere, I would probably have a lower voice tone somewhere. But most of the singers you hear on the radio don't just have like a nice bassy voice. Mm-hmm. Was that ever something where you were like, well, I guess I can't sing what they're singing because my voice doesn't
that's an excellent
sing
point.
all the high notes.
The United States is a land of tenors. Like everybody has nice, high-pitched stuff. Like all commercial music has someone that sings, way up there.
Yeah.
And where I come from, that's not the norm.
Okay.
Like all my friends would basically have sort of like the same, tone of voice that I would have. But here is like everybody is, wow, the way up there. And it's like, oh my gosh, like everybody does it. Yeah.
Yeah. All like radio jingles, they're all somewhere in the same area. Now I'm thinking of like all of and now all I see on anymore is like pharmacy commercials on TV. It seems like that's all that I see online. But yeah, all those are like all right in the same sort of range. So was that something where you were like, from the past, you knew like none of your friends and none of the music down in Nicaragua was like this, so you can do it without singing higher?
Yeah, but it would be a pushed voice, right? Which I think there's a lot of beauty in that kind of singing, just as much as there is beauty in a very nice, effortless falsetto or just something that is just up there by nature. That's one of the most frustrating things for me about worship music. I think it's great, but everything is way up there. So it's like, okay, harmony it is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the only other option, if you want to hit it, you could like, well, I'll do the octave, but down here.
Yeah, all the way down. Yeah.
And it's like, that just sounds weird at that point, I think.
One of the biggest voice of, worship music is Chris Tumlin, and his music is great. But then it's like, all right, dude, you're singing on your own because that is not going to happen.
Yeah, I can't hit those notes.
Yeah. And then when you have to lead a congregation, you have to, bring it down a little bit more reachable so that everybody can sing instead of turn it into a concert. Like, we came to hear this great guy that sings all the way up there.
I didn't even think of that. Like, so it's not, you're not playing for them. You're not like up there like they didn't pay tickets to come see Sidney play.
No, we came to sing.
The best worship.
We came to praise. So
bingo.
The purpose of this whole thing is different.
Yeah. So you ended up having to possibly not just for yourself, but just for the average person like me who can't hit those high notes. You're like, well, we need to take this down a few steps. So that's something. Is that something you've like? I guess you probably got used to doing that then, because that's something that I feel like when people put a capo on something, they're like, I don't know what's happening. Where like I kind of got used to that because Clint Riedel would do that all the time at jam night. So it's like, I could figure this out. You just takes you a second, then you're like, we're in this key, and you figure it out on the fly. But okay, so that's definitely something different. I didn't think about having to tailor the songs you're singing for the audience because the audience is actually part of the song. Wow.
Absolutely. Otherwise, there's no worship. If the people just come and do that, they will sit down and listen, and it's okay to listen. But the purpose, it's also to get involved and to be a part of it, right? It's a corporate thing. It's not that artist. All the way up there.
Yeah, I'm rusty on my Bible verses and stuff. But there was something like, even if you can't sing well, make a joyful noise or
shout
something.
To the Lord with a joyful noise.
Yeah,
that's right.
So you gotta sing. That's like the whole point of it, is to sing along and do it with everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's cool. Cool. Yeah. We still got to get to this dancing thing. I want to see you dance. Like I could just imagine. I just imagine you could do like break dancing, or you can do like Michael Jackson stuff if you really wanted to. Like.
Yeah.
All right,
sure.
Maybe. All right, so somebody get married and invite Sidney and me to your wedding. I just want to sit there and watch him like bust it up on the dance floor.
Do the moonwalk.
Yeah. Oh, sweet. Can you?
Cool. I think I still can. I haven't practiced it in a while.
Ooh, all right.
Check it out. We got it here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out. So do you play any other instruments, or was it just guitar? I don't want to say just guitar, because you learned guitar in a different way than most people. But
well, if what I do with the guitar is playing. Sure, we can call it that. I mean, it's
That's humble.
It's literally playing more than executing an instrument. So yeah. Minor percussion, small percussion. Us most of us brothers have a pretty clear sense of rhythm. I think it's something in our blood. So
Yes.
I could keep a beat. Not as good as Stephanie in a full drum set.
Yeah. That still blows my mind.
I tease her from time to time that I think there's some African heritage.
Yeah. You guys should do an Ancestry.com thing just to double check that.
Right. Yeah.
No, rhythm is not universal. And I don't want to say that it's just...
Isn't that crazy?
It's weird to me. But then again, like, there's a lot of stuff that's not universal to... Like, this is second nature to this person. Like math and other people, it's not. But then art is, to some people and other people not. So, but it does blow me away that's like, you don't know to clap on 2 and 4, or like... why are you clapping on 1 and like the 1 and 3 versus 2 and 4 thing just blows me away first and foremost. But I've done enough guitar lessons where like it's weird when you have to like get an egg shaker out and be like, just shake it with me. So I know that where like the beats are ba-cha, 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 ta-cha, 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 ta-cha. Like you have to feel it inside, and I don't know, it just kind of blows me away. But
maybe it's the dancing part. I don't know.
Because I mean, you're right. When I think about like Latin American cultures or like things in that sort of area, it's like I think about like lots of dancing, lots of rhythm, like lots of drums,
of syncopation, and
yeah,
stuff like
it's especially even in Caribbean, like you said, syncopation. There's like almost all like reggae type ish music in that area is this just based on syncopation, because you're always there's no leading to a stop. You're always waiting for the next beat to hit, and that's all that music ever really was. But
very accurate, yeah.
So you figured out you could sing. You figured out you can play guitar. You're leading church services. I know you've written songs. Like, what made you decide to actually try to write a song then?
Well, for me, the purpose of learning a different language was to speak it, right? Mm-hmm. Learning the guitar, I felt, and I don't want to sound arrogant, I felt a yearn to write music for God.
Okay.
That. Sure, when I was growing, for girls, my mother, the political circumstances, sure, all of that, of course.
That's your dad coming. That's the poet coming out,
Very likely, yeah. But it was just like, it was, I think that this is what happens to everybody, but maybe not.
Okay.
You play a sequence of chords, and something comes to mind, and you recite it, you say it, you speak it, and then that sounds like I could do something there, and then you produce it, right? And then you try to remember that idea to polish it, rewrite it, and make it rhyme, and that could be it. Maybe it's not. That's how it is for me.
Okay.
That's how it is for me. So the purpose of playing something or playing an instrument is not necessarily to imitate something that somebody else did, like dancing, for example.
Okay.
You see someone dancing and you go like, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And then you practice it until you replicate it.
Mm-hmm.
In my case, music is not like that. Music is a vehicle that I use to express whatever I think God is giving me or sending me or whatever. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make me like super spiritual or whatever. Mm-hmm. No, that's just that's how I interpret stuff.
So some of us would call that like the muse. Like you said, when you're like, you could play a couple chords, and you're like, that makes me think of this line, this sentence, or like this part of a sentence. Mm-hmm. And then that's the muse. This thing comes out of you that you don't know where it came from, and you didn't really decide that's what you were going to say. It just came out, know? And so your muse just came out in a sense where you're going to write songs, Christian songs.
Yeah, the inspiration, right? The spirit in us, the inspiration, that's... Now I'm thinking of that great hit of the 80s, You're the Inspiration. But let's carry on. That's
So how did you, so how did you know from a songwriting perspective to keep going with something? Because I'll tell you what, I've written like little itty bitty bits of things, but I've never ever finished. Like I finished a song once when I was like 17. Since then, I haven't ever written a song to completion, and I've never really sought out these original ideas to extrapolate them into something bigger. How did you know to like take this piece of fruit and squeeze it and get all the juice out of it, as opposed to just having just a piece of fruit, you know?
So that was probably from seeing a book that had my father's name.
Okay.
And then I would see this book, and there were small paragraphs that rhymed, or sentences that rhymed alternatively. And then when you are speaking poetry, when you're reading poetry, without having an instrument, you identify rhythm, cadence, sometimes a beat, different things. So when I was reading some of his writings, or when I would hear him recite them, I would say, he's kind of like singing, but he's not singing. He's speaking, but sounds like a song. And then I don't know how at some point that found a way in my mind, and this stuff started to come out.
Yeah. I feel like the 80s, maybe even part of the 70s, but there was like a big push for a lot of people doing that. It's almost like the showroom singing, where they're like talk singing. It's like I'm rhythmically talking the thing out, and it still feels like it's singing in a song. You know, I think like William Shatner had like an album or something where he was basically just talking. Or, you know, it makes me think of like Frank Sinatra kind of like showroom singing, where like there's parts where you're like, he's not even singing, he's just saying stuff.
Or the idea of storytelling in rap music, right?
Yeah.
And then it just takes off to something different, and yeah.
Oh man, yeah. And then you can start slicing up your rhythms in different places and stuff. You know, again, we're back to rhythms and stuff. So at what point in time did you realize that like you were gonna like, oh, well, maybe I want to record some of this? Because I know you've recorded music too, haven't you?
Yeah. It started in 2003, 2004 when I had my first PC. The PC that was given to me had a had a program called Nero Wave Editor.
Okay.
Do you remember that? Were you ever exposed to that?
I know what it is, yeah.
So then one day, my mom shows up with a white set of very cheap-looking headphones that have a mic here.
Oh.
And I hook it up. I go to the interface and I push we call it rec, right? The record button. And I start speaking, and the thing saves it.
Yeah.
And I go like, wonder if I can do that with my guitar. So I get a guitar, and then I play it. And I was like, it does, but it doesn't sound so clear. Then I started to borrow equipment from the church I was gathering at, and, you know, hook it up in the auxiliary button in the back. And then this monstrosity, I remember it was what was it? One was a PV mixer, and the other one was a small Sennheiser, just a teeny tiny little interface where I could connect the guitar, and it had a way through it.
That's cool.
And I started putting music to some of the stuff that I had written, and it was with the chords that I knew. And yeah, that was back in 2004.
Was that still down in Nicaragua, or was that like up here?
That was in Nicaragua.
Whoa.
That was in Nicaragua. I had been an exchange student in Norway, and Norwegians have a very interesting. Yeah, I know, right?
We skipped over something.
It's like the drug bus right now,
dude. As we're just keep peeling this onion, and there's more layers and more layers and more layers.
They had there's a concept in Norway called folk high school. You finish high school, and then for a whole year, you go study your interests: politics, music production, filming, plastic arts, social studies, and then if you do well, the government pays for that, and it doesn't cost you anything. Anyhow, I was part of an exchange where somebody that studied social came to Nicaragua, and the reverse of that was me going over there. When I got to this school, I see that there's people my age and younger learning how to produce for fun.
Yeah.
And when they graduate, the goal is to have an album.
Oh, whoa.
And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And every month they would perform the next song that was going to make it to the album. And when I heard that album the first time, I was like, I saw them do that. There's no way that could have been done in front of my eyes when I saw it.
Yeah.
And then that awakened a whole different level of curiosity and just be like, okay, so there's a computer involved.
Yeah.
And microphones and a mixer. I saw they had a mixer.
Yeah.
And then
They just have to sit down every month and chug out one song. And which really, I mean, it's from a songwriting perspective, shouldn't be too hard in theory.
and it was a whole bunch of covers, right? It's not like they were writing them and composing them.
Okay.
It was already written. It was just interpretation.
Okay. So it's a little bit different than writing your own song, but still, like you saw right there that it was possible.
You saw it.
Yeah.
That's right. I saw it. And when I saw it, I go like, but you can do that.
Yeah, that's fun.
But it was not that easy.
I feel like that's the thing is like so much stuff to us is just like, this is so foreign of a concept. How could anybody even think of this? And then you go get down to the nuts and bolts of it and you're sitting right there next to somebody, you're like, oh, this kind of makes sense. Whether or not it's like doing taxes or anything, I've never bought a house. How could anybody ever buy a house? And then you go buy a house, you're like, well, I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but it really wasn't that hard. But, it's not until you do something the first time that you realize like how not crazy it is,
Something interesting about that, at Jam Night was the first time ever I saw from up close lead guitar being played.
Oh, cool.
And when I saw that, I was like, that can be done. And then I went down to a rabbit hole of pedals and amplifiers and whatever, and I go like, okay, so the things that I actually hear in my head at some point with the right tools could make it to a logical sequence that fits the set of chords that you have. And if you listen any of the stuff that I have out there, it's not super elaborated, but it's a pretty faithful translation of what I would hear in my mind, right? Like I would record them in an audio thing on the phone with my voice and then be like, okay, now I have to work 2-3 hours of this where, Jeremy, Owen, yourself, Alex, anybody would just like, oh yeah, I heard it. Brrr, there it is. Done.
Oh gosh.
That's not me.
Dude,
no.
I'm not super good at hearing something and redoing it on a guitar for whatever reason. But like if I'm listening to other people play guitar, I can redo what they're doing, But if somebody was singing it to me, like play these notes, and it's just like, is it this note? Like I'm just like hitting and missing all over the place. So I'm in the same boat as you for sure.
It's a different kind of muscle.
But it's neat that you can hear it in your head and sing it out. So you at least have some sort of a baseline of like, this is here. Plus you're like, you were smart enough to at least get it recorded like on a phone or somewhere just to sing it out there. Like I have this melody, instead of like some people might be like, well, here's the words and maybe some of these chords, but you don't have any of the rhythm now, like chunked out. But like if you sing it, you at least have the rhythm. I always thought that was the toughest thing about any of the songwriting. It was just like, if I'm playing guitar, it's like, oh, I did a little cool thing here. I'll remember that. And then you come back in a week and you're like, I don't remember any of that. Because I didn't record any of it. At least when you've heard it in your head, you can sing it. Sing it out there. So, but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. So
it's work in progress for sure.
Yeah. So you've recorded some songs. I know, like I've heard stories about you putting music online and having it possibly get taken down. Like I know somebody had kind of mentioned that. Do you want to talk about any of that? Like,
I think we can.
All right. So like the story I heard, you can tell me how close or not close this is, but like you basically put music online. You told your friends here and you told your friends in Nicaragua. Everybody was like, I have this, you should check it out. You get enough streams from enough places in theory around the world that whatever streaming services it was. I had heard stories of who it might have been, but they kind of contacted you and you were like, we think you're making fake plays because you're getting just random plays from around the world and they're coming in possibly too fast. And then they were like, we're going to have you take this down and do something else with it.
So I think everybody who makes music knows exactly which streaming service is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to put anybody on the spot, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, I think the most popular and cheapest service for music streaming, it's in countries like where I come from or any other third world countries, there's a lot of fake, unmonitored accounts.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, out in the streets of Nicaragua, you can buy. Let's use a service that doesn't do that. Like, for example, there's no access to like an Apple Music subscription as available as it is here for everybody in Nicaragua.
Okay.
Because you have to create an Apple account. You have to have a real card.
Okay.
That card has to have funds.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, let's say that it was possible, a lot of people get an Apple account in like a group.
Okay.
And then when you create or you provide an email, you put a fake email because there will be you and your buddies using the same account, paying for the price of one. Mm-hmm. So now we all have access to this from all of our different devices. And it could be 10 of us. It could be 15 of us.
Oh, okay.
And then there's all of that being repeated from one particular aspect. I think one of the services pays very close attention the minute you cross 10,000 streamings.
Okay.
I think that's when they start paying attention. This happened with Stephanie's song, which is called Thank You. That's a pretty cool story. Stephanie she tells the story different. Stephanie was thinking of this song, and then she sent it to me in an audio note. And then years later, the song finally came to exist with the original verse and thing that she was hearing.
Cool.
In her mind. Thank You is available everywhere, so you can check it out in YouTube and any of that stuff.
All right.
So
they just search Sidney McField. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice.
Or Stephanie McField. Thank You. It'll be there.
Is it under her name?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's Thank You featuring Stephanie McField.
Nice.
She's
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's really weird that like, I mean, I guess I could kind of understand where like a service might look at like multiple people using one account or like kind of things like that and be like, something happened here. I don't know. But like at the same time, it seems kind of wonky that they would just, in theory, like what I heard was they were essentially like, we're just gonna have to pull this off the internet for a while until we figure out what's going on.
They let you put it back and whatever. But this particular one, it's my least favorite. For those of you that really love high quality music, I promise I'm not being paid by them. There's a service called Tidal. I don't know if you've heard about them.
Yep.
The fidelity of their streaming is magnificent. Mm-hmm. It's great. I love it.
I've been hearing a lot of people going towards Tidal.
Yeah, I got their free deal for like $2.99, and you get to use it for like 3 or 4 months. I cannot remember what it is, and I have loved it.
Nice.
And it's good.
Well,
it's good. Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to go that way. Yeah, I didn't know like what half of these streaming services were until I started, utilizing them to like either stream podcasts or to make sure my podcast was on them, or I'm in a band down in Des Moines that puts music out every now and then. So it's like same deal. It was like, well, we got to get out on everything. It's like, get it out on Tidal. It's like, well, what is Tidal? And then you find out like, oh, there's a couple 100,000 people using it. It's like, well, I might as well put my music on there. They might hear it. You never know. So
yeah,
that's really cool. It's kind of a bummer that happened to you, but so like you just re-uploaded everything and it just kind of.
But I don't care that much. I mean, it's in YouTube. Everything is in YouTube, and we all know that one is a free for everybody.
Yeah.
And then it's on the other ones, the ones that I really, really, really care. I'm an Apple Music user, so I that's the one I really care about. But I at some point you want other people to hear it, or at least you want that message to be out there. But it's not necessarily a message that has not been heard or read before, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's no biggie.
Yeah. So, either way, so like you got music out there. How long have you been putting music online then? Because I guess from what I know, it's just the last maybe couple years.
Started last September.
Okay.
It started last September. I started to put it out there because I thought it was time. And if I was gonna do something, I wanted to give it a good shot. And when I made the decision, everything became simpler. And that is one of the greatest things about the area in which we live. There's a lot of undercover producers that do a magnificent job. I mean, yourself with your podcast. And everybody else that we check out at Jam Night is doing that. I think I was coming back from work the other day and I saw a quick little post on Facebook about Clint's music being in everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is magnificent.
Yeah, that was one that Jesse Wilson helped him out with. I know.
And I looked it up and it's like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's super cool. Yeah, I mean that's the best part I think is if you have a question you can bounce it off of somebody and they'll tell you an honest answer.
Yeah.
Where like other places it might not be that way.
Yeah.
Or you might not even have anyone to ask, where like in Fort Dodge it's like, well, I can ask 10 different people how to get my music on the internet.
Yeah.
How did you get it on the internet? How'd you get it everywhere? What did you do? Or what did you do when you were recording it to make it sound like this? They're not going to hold it too close to their chest.
Yeah.
They'll be like, yeah, I don't know, come on over. We'll dink around with it. There's a lot of that going on here. I think that's one of the best parts about like the Fort Dodge area. It's not just Fort Dodge. I mean, you go any county surrounding Fort Dodge, you're going to find a handful of people that are in the same boat,
And then there's I cannot remember which town is. I think it's Otho.
Yep.
There's a super nice recording studio there.
Which nobody would have ever thought that.
Right. Yeah. Then you go to, I think in Boone, there's another one. And then I think it's so cool, this semi-clandestine, network of little hidden studios that can produce great quality stuff, and I think that's the purpose of it, to have it travel and to go leave a legacy or whatever.
Absolutely. So we're getting close to the end here, and I only have a few things left. So like we're talking about playing, like you played in a church band, you've recorded music. Do you have any desire to play this music live somewhere, or have you played it? Have you gone out and played a show somewhere?
Yeah, when my former pastor retired, obviously somebody else took over. So Stephanie and myself took like a year off, and we put a couple shows at River Hubs of praise music.
Cool.
Right? And we did that, and it turned out really well. Then after a year or so, we kept on having more kids, and we found a new church. So now we are involved in a new project in Harcourt.
Oh, cool.
And that one is a very nice setup. So Mission Community Christian or Mission Community Church in Harcourt, which is right in the corner of the gas station.
Yeah. That's that I want to say like the big one they just built, but it's
a new building.
That's cool.
And it's from within the same people from the community. So anyhow, I'm a part of that team now, and I play, instead of classic acoustical, I play electric there. So it's
cool.
It's a lot of fun, and just that takes our time, right? That's my weekly gig. It's every Sunday, and there's
a rehearsal every week too,
and there's
probably?
a very long Wednesday night rehearsal, which I enjoy.
Yeah. And then, that's your jam night, That's awesome.
Yep. And then we hold the kids and we expose them to the music, and from time to time we let them run a little too widely, but it's good for them to be exposed to that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think about that when you're a kid growing up. Like, I feel like most kids are just like, I'm going to do what my dad does. And like, it doesn't matter if your dad's a carpenter or an electrician or a plumber. They're just like, I want to do plumbing just like my dad or whatever, it could be something crazy. Like, I want to pour concrete, or like it could just be something very specific. And then, that's just being exposed to it as a kid, and it's same thing with like when you were talking about recording music, when it wasn't until you saw it and you were exposed to it, you're like, oh, this is possible. It's it's great to expose kids to all this kind of stuff, And like you said, if they run around a little too wildly, that's okay. They're kids. You just explain to them why maybe they shouldn't do that so much, and then just away you go. Next day, just take them somewhere else.
And I think all of us at a certain point are like that, right? Just that bug for something is always there. The trick is, are you going to know what's it about or not? Because then you can, invest in it at some point.
So you do play live, you play at church, and let's say the church name one more time in case somebody wants to come out and watch you play.
Yeah, that is Mission Community Church in Harcourt, Iowa. It's weird. The address is coming back to me. 77 Laneson Avenue. Or if you get to the gas station in Harcourt, you cannot miss the church in the corner.
Yeah, it's right next door. Yep. Yeah, it's like right on 169, right there at the corner.
Can't miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm assuming, do you have like a Facebook page for you as a musician, or is it just...
I do not.
All right. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put the Facebook page for the church down below.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then if somebody wants to check it out, just go on there. You'll be...
you mean right here?
Right down there. Scroll down. It'll be right down there. So you can click on that and go watch. Sunday, I'm assuming, is the services.
Yeah.
All right. So this is cool because
Sundays at 9.
So you just got done playing earlier today, and now you're over here. That's really cool. That's really cool. Yep. So I just want to say, is there anything we haven't covered here that we should cover? Were there any fun stories that you were thinking about that, like, I feel like I've got just about everything, I just almost want to recap. From Nicaragua, you basically learned guitar by watching somebody else and then playing again on no strings later. You know how to dance, you know how to sing, you were in a big church choir, you were radio DJ, like a mini pastor on the radio too, in a sense, yeah. Then
I'll take it.
Then you come up to America and you basically just repeated the process, and even when things, we had talked about it, like if say there was something that happened and it was like, I wasn't expecting this to happen. You didn't just like crumble and go back to Nicaragua. You changed gears and then kept going here, which is, I don't know if I would have that in me. I feel like if I went to another country, like if I went to England and something happened and it just didn't plan out the way I thought it was, I would just be like, I'm going home. I don't know if I would have what you have in you, that drive to just keep going, and just the fact that you know 2 languages and I've lived in 2 countries and, it's just everything about you I think is like very intriguing to me. And that's like one of the things I've always kind of wanted you to have you on the podcast, but I wasn't sure what right questions to ask. So for anybody that pumped me a couple questions, I will say thanks to Jefferson Fossbender for really kind of pushing this the other day when we were all kind of talking. So
yeah, he's so nice.
Yeah, he's a good guy for sure. So let's just scroll down below, check out the link for Sidney's church. Go check them out live someday on a Sunday. If you got nothing better going on, you want to check out a new church, even if you're just passing through town, just swing it out. And I've found that I don't go to church very often, but I've gone to churches just to listen to the bands before because I like music, and I'm okay with that. You know what? I'm okay with that. So even if you want to just go listen to some music, just go hang out and watch Sidney play some music and listen for a while. So Sidney, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come and tell your story because it's such a fun story. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I think you're doing something really great with this podcast, especially I foresee it within the years now and going back into this huge file of people that you have had here and that, they took off to be something outstanding. And you go like, oh yeah, you should check out when this guy was like 16 or 17 or whatever, what they did. Just a vision of the future. Wow, look at Pete, how he looked then. Just
I didn't even think, I never think about that. And it's like, now we're almost, this will be episode 247. So there's almost 250 episodes.
Wow,
and
247?
Yeah, so even if you take out some of the duplicates, there's probably 200 different people I've talked to. Which is like wild. I never would have thought about that.
Where do you find so many people?
I don't know. Like, where are these? And the crazy thing is when I started it back up, at least half of them have been all new people still. So there's still like tons of people I haven't talked to, And then you look at the other people kind of doing what I'm doing around the state or neighboring states. It's like they're all talking to different people too. So there's so many musicians out there. And it's just nice to have you people out here telling your stories because nobody has the same story, and sometimes you can gain inspiration from somebody else's story. And sometimes it's like, well, I kind of want to make music with that person. Or maybe they come to, check you out at church, and then in the common area after church is over, they come shake your hand. Like, I heard you on the podcast. I wanted to come see you and say hi. I've had a few people say that before, where people are like, they introduced themselves to me because they heard me on a podcast. It's like, that's the coolest thing ever. That's kind of what this is about, So, again, this is really cool. Thanks for the coffee also as well. This is amazing. I drank pretty much the whole thing on the podcast.
Yeah, I had like a half a gallon on my way here, so it's all right.
Yeah, this has been a really fun day, really fun Sunday. Just for those listening, this is the end of the podcast, but I got to drive an electric car today for the first time, and that was fun too. Went around the block in an electric car. I never really knew what that would be like, so that's pretty cool. I don't know. It's just been a day full of awesomeness. So nice. Thank you very much.
Hey, a favor to request. Maybe we can also put in the links. People to check out the music. I think the ultimate thing with the music project that I got going on is if I can get people to say, "Oh, if that guy can do that, I can do way better than that." Oh. I am happy, thrilled, excited. I think that's big.
All right, so
thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'll put, you said Tidal was the other one you like to use, right? So if you give me Tidal, YouTube, Apple Music, and Spotify links for any of those, I'll just pump them down below and people can click on them and check them out.
That works great.
Awesome. So it's going to be right there below the church one. So if you want to check out his music, definitely please go do that. And this is the end of the podcast. So thanks, Sidney. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
That was a good one. It's always good. I had such a blast with this one. It's so much fun. I feel like we left a lot untold, though, too. We glossed over a lot of stuff. I want to know more about the dancing. I want to know more about a lot of stuff. So hopefully we'll have him back on again in the future. It was a blast. I just had fun the whole time. The whole time, it was a great time. It's good to sit down and talk with people I don't really know, and it's really fun when they have great stories like this. So, Sidney, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast. And also, if you guys want to go check out Sidney, I got some links down below. Go check them out. I used to love going to churches to see bands, because church bands, I don't know, maybe I have a soft spot in my heart because that's kind of where I started. But yeah, it was fun to just go see churches just to see what the music was like, because sometimes there's different instruments that wouldn't normally be in other stuff, and I don't know, it's just a different vibe overall. So if you want to go check that out for sure. Otherwise, go check out his music online for sure. I listened to the song that he had sent me. I've got links down below where you can check out some of his music. I love it. It's great. I think he described it well. It's not very much like anything else that you're going to hear around here. So, and I think that's one of the things that makes it unique, and that's what's great about it. So thank you very much, Sidney, for joining the podcast. Check his stuff out down below. Go check him out. Go to the church and check him out. Watch him live and sing along and have a good time. And I got to say thanks to the Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association again. Go listen to the last episode. We sat down and talked with the Fort Dodge Area Symphony. Great episode. The fun thing I was looking through recently about the episodes was if you hover over each episode, if you're going to a computer and you hover over each episode on YouTube, you can see where they were. You can see a little snippet of the episode, and you get to see these awesome backdrops of the different places that we've been. I think that's one of the coolest parts about that podcast is the different locations and the different things that we, places we've been to and the things we've supported, and it's just so great. Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association is doing great. Check out their podcast, FDT. I got their website down below. Check that out. So thank you guys very much, Fort Dodge Fine Arts Association. And thank you for listening. Go to audiblefarm.com to find out just about anything you need to know. Otherwise, find us on all the socials and stuff. Share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And thank you guys very much. We'll check you next week. Peace.